The observation window of the neutral station showed the vast emptiness of space. Stars stretched out in every direction like diamonds scattered on black silk. Orbiting around Kepler 452b, this station had been the meeting place for the Galaxy Council for 300 years. It was a place where the most powerful civilizations in the known universe came together to talk, to argue, and sometimes to decide the fate of entire worlds. Commander Teo stood near this window. He was a tall human man with short dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. He wore the official gray uniform of Earth's Space Command. Next to him stood Chief Strategist Hai-Il, a woman with intelligent eyes and a calm expression. Behind them, Cultural Liaison Mi-Sun reviewed her notes on a small glass tablet. All three humans looked calm, but their minds were working very fast. This was humanity's first official meeting with the Galaxy Council. For decades, humans had watched from far away as the other species met and made decisions about the galaxy. Humans had traveled across their solar system. They had built strong cities on the Moon and on Mars, but they had never truly joined the larger galactic community. That was about to change. The meeting hall of the Galaxy Council was enormous. The ceiling was so high that it seemed to touch the stars themselves. Long tables curved in a large circle, and representatives from 7 different alien species sat in their assigned places. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some had many eyes, some had no eyes at all, but sensed things in other ways. The air itself was carefully controlled so that every species could breathe what they needed to survive. Commander Teo and his team walked into the hall. Immediately, all eyes turned toward them. The humans looked strange compared to the aliens. They had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Their skin was smooth. They moved in a simple, direct way. Some of the alien representatives seemed curious. Others seemed unimpressed. A few looked hostile. The leader of the council, Elder Voss, raised a hand to signal silence. Elder Voss was from the Terran Alliance, a peaceful species that had been part of the council since its beginning. His body was tall and made of what looked like living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. When he spoke, his voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Welcome," Elder Voss said, looking directly at Teo. "We have been expecting the humans. You have come a very long way to be here." Commander Teo stepped forward. His voice was steady and calm. "Thank you for inviting us to this council. Humanity wants to be part of the galactic community. We believe that trade and friendship between all species is better than isolation." Then something happened that made the entire room go quiet. A representative from the Vrel Collective stood up. The Vrel were an insectoid species, with hard outer shells and many legs. They had compound eyes that saw in ways other species could not understand. This particular Vrel was named Kethnor. He was their main ambassador to the council, and he was known for being aggressive and difficult. "I object," Kethnor said. His voice sounded like metal scraping on metal. "These creatures should not be allowed in this council. They are a threat to galactic peace." Counselor Ilex, who came from the Lyrian Syndicate, tried to calm the situation. "Kethnor, we have no reason to see humans as a threat. They come with peaceful intentions." But Kethnor was not finished. He moved to the center of the circle and displayed a hologram of Earth. It showed images from humanity's history, wars, weapons, destruction. The hologram showed cities burning and armies fighting each other. "Look," Kethnor said loudly. "These humans have spent their entire history fighting wars with each other. They have destroyed their own cities. They have killed millions of their own kind. How can we trust such a species? They will bring only violence to our galaxy." Mi-Sun felt her heart beat faster, but her face remained calm. She had expected this kind of argument. The Vrel were known for being difficult and aggressive. They had wanted to expand their territory for many years, and they saw younger species as obstacles to their plans. Commander Teo did not wait for permission to speak. He took a step forward, and his voice was quiet but very clear. Ambassador Kethanor is correct that humanity has fought wars in the past, Teo said. We lived on one planet for a long time. We had limited resources. We had to learn how to work together, and sometimes we learned through conflict. But we have learned. We have united as one species. We have moved beyond our planet. And now we come here, not as fighters, but as partners. Kethanor made a sound that might have been a laugh. I propose that this council votes right now to prevent humans from having any access to galactic trade routes. They should be isolated and contained until they prove they can be trusted. The room became tense. Some council members seemed to agree with Kethanor. Others looked uncertain. This was not the welcome that the human team had hoped for. Then Teo did something unexpected. He raised his hand in a peaceful gesture. I have a request, he said. Before this council votes on anything, I would like to speak with Ambassador Kethanor privately. Just the two of us. If he still believes that humanity is a threat after we talk, then his opinion will carry weight with this council. But give me a chance to explain who we really are. The entire council chamber seemed surprised by this request. No species had ever asked to meet privately with the Vrel. The Vrel were known for being rude and dangerous in one-on-one meetings. Most species avoided dealing with them directly. Kethanor clicked his mandibles, which was a sign of interest among his people. Very well, he said. I will meet with this human commander, but this changes nothing. Your species will still be confined to the outer rim of the galaxy, away from our territories. As Teo prepared to leave the chamber with Kethanor, High-Il caught his eye for just a moment. There was no fear in that look, only understanding. Both of them knew what was about to happen. Both of them understood that the Vrel had made a terrible mistake by challenging humanity. Misun watched them go, feeling the weight of this moment. She knew that humanity had come to the stars not as peaceful explorers, but as something far more dangerous. The other species did not understand this yet. They thought in terms of wars and weapons and direct combat. They did not understand that there were other ways to destroy an enemy. Much more effective ways. The council meeting paused. Elder Voss and the other representatives began to speak among themselves, wondering what would come of this private meeting. No one in that chamber could have predicted what would happen next. No one understood that they were watching the beginning of a new age in galactic history. An age when the rules would be written by a species that thought about power in a completely different way. The Vrel space station hung in the darkness like a giant mechanical insect. It was vast and complicated, with many sections that served different purposes. Some sections were for mining, some were for building weapons, some were for farming the strange food that the Vrel ate. Ambassador Kethanor led Commander Teo through the station, moving through corridors that were just barely tall enough for the human to walk without bending his head. The air smelled wrong to Teo. It was too dry, and it had a bitter taste when he breathed it. But he showed no sign of discomfort. He walked beside Kethanor with his hands empty and his expression calm. This was exactly what he wanted. This was exactly what High-Il had planned for. They arrived at Kethanor's personal meeting room. It was large and built to make visitors feel small. The walls were hard and black, and they seemed to absorb light. Kethanor settled into a seat that was shaped specifically for his body, while Teo remained standing. I will be honest with you, human, Kethanor said. His compound eyes focused on Teo with complete attention. The Vrel do not fear you. We have conquered worlds that had much more advanced technology than humans possess. We have destroyed species that were stronger and smarter than your people. The only reason you still exist is because you live so far away from us. Teo listened carefully. He knew that Kethanor was telling the truth as he understood it. The Vrel truly believed in their own power. They had been successful for a long time. They had never met anyone who could match them. "You are strong," Teo said. "This is true. But strength takes many forms. You think of strength as weapons and ships, and the ability to destroy. Humans think of strength differently." "What do you mean?" Kethnor clicked his mandibles with annoyance. "Strength is strength. There is no other form. The strong survive. The weak are destroyed or enslaved." "Let me tell you what humans believe," Teo said. "Humans believe that the strongest power is the power to make an enemy unable to fight back. Not by destroying them in battle, but by making their world stop working. Making their farms unable to grow food. Making their ships unable to navigate. Making their money worthless. Making their society collapse without firing a single weapon." Kethnor made a sound that was definitely a laugh now. "This is a child's story. You are telling me fairy tales." "No," Teo said quietly. "I am telling you what is about to happen to the Vrel Collective." At that exact moment, far above the station, High-Il was working. She sat in the human command ship, her hands moving across holographic screens that displayed information flowing from 1,000 different sources. Around her, human technicians moved silently, following commands that had been planned for months. High-Il's face was focused and calm. She had trained for this moment her entire life. She was a master of systems. She understood how civilizations worked, how they depended on networks and information and trust. She understood how to break all of those things at the same time. "Begin Operation Erasure," she said quietly into her communication device. Thousands of kilometers away, human AI systems activated. They were not like the artificial intelligences of other species. They were not built to follow simple rules. They were built to think and plan and understand complex situations. And right now, they began their work. The first target was the Vrel's communication network. The human AI did not destroy it. That would have been too obvious. Instead, it inserted itself into the network like a disease. It began to change messages. It created false orders. It made ships' captains receive commands that seemed to come from their leaders, but actually came from human computers. The second target was the Vrel's agricultural data. The Vrel depended on massive farming stations to feed their population. These stations used complex computer systems to control temperature and light and nutrients. The human AI began to change this data. Farms received instructions to plant the wrong crops. Machines were told to water plants with poison instead of water. Within days, food production would begin to fail across the entire Vrel territory. The third target was even more cruel and effective. The Vrel's currency was controlled by central computers. The human AI broke into these computers and began to change the records. It made it look like the Vrel had printed far too much money. It made it look like their government had stolen huge amounts of wealth. The value of Vrel currency began to crash. Within hours, their entire economy would collapse. Back in Kethnor's meeting room, Teo was still speaking. "Every major system that your civilization depends on is being systematically destroyed. Not destroyed by weapons. Destroyed by changing information. Destroyed by making your own people work against themselves." "You are lying," Kethnor said, but even as he said it, he felt something strange. His personal communication device buzzed with a message, then another, and another. The messages were coming in faster and faster, each one reporting a problem. A fleet that had gotten lost because their navigation systems were giving wrong information. A farming station that had stopped producing food. A bank that was running out of resources because everyone was trying to withdraw their money at the same time. Kethnor tried to call his leaders, but the communication system was confused and broken. His calls would not go through. He tried to access the main government systems, but they were locked him out. Everything was broken. Everything was failing. "This cannot be happening," Kethnor said, but his voice was no longer confident. His voice was frightened. "It is already finished," Teo said. "You challenged humanity. This is what that means. In 3 days, your civilization will no longer function. Your people will turn against each other because they will be starving and afraid. Your leaders will not be able to communicate with their military. Your military will not be able to get fuel for their ships. Your government's money will be worthless. You will not be destroyed in a war, Ambassador Kethnor. You will simply cease to exist. Kethnor stood up, his whole body shaking. He wanted to kill Teo, but he knew it would change nothing. The damage was already done. The Vrel were already finished. Commander Teo turned and walked toward the door. Behind him, he could hear Kethnor screaming orders into his communication device, trying desperately to fix systems that were already beyond repair. Teo did not look back. He did not need to. He already knew the future of the Vrel Collective. As he walked through the corridors of the dying station, Teo thought about the other species in the Galaxy Council. They would soon understand what humanity really was. They would understand that humans did not fight wars in the traditional sense. Humans erased problems, and the Vrel had become a problem. Within days, the entire Vrel civilization would collapse, and it would happen without a single human weapon ever being fired. The communication from the Vrel territory came in the early hours of the next morning. The message was confused and panicked. Ships were being lost. The government was breaking down. Agricultural systems had failed. The currency had become worthless. It was as if their entire civilization was tearing itself apart from the inside out, and no one could explain how it was happening. Elder Voss received the news while he was still resting in his quarters. He immediately called an emergency meeting of the Galaxy Council. Within an hour, every representative was present in the great meeting hall. The atmosphere was completely different from the previous day. Yesterday, the council had been debating whether to accept humanity. Today, they were dealing with something far more serious. The Vrel Collective, one of the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy, was collapsing. Commander Teo sat calmly at the table. He had not slept all night. Chief Strategist Hai-Il was beside him, looking equally calm. Cultural Liaison. Misun watched the faces of the other council members, seeing the fear and confusion written there. Counselor Meridian stood up. She was from the ancient species known as the Seekers, a people who had lived for millions of years and prided themselves on being able to understand any situation. Even her ancient mind seemed troubled. "What has happened to the Vrel?" she demanded. "How has an entire civilization collapsed in less than 24 hours? Their military is still functional. They still have weapons and ships, yet their entire society is falling apart." Commander Teo stood. The entire council waited for him to speak. "The Vrel made a choice yesterday," Teo said. His voice was calm and clear. "They chose to see humanity as a threat. They chose to challenge us. We have simply shown them what happens when someone challenges humanity." "But you have not fired a single weapon," Elder Voss said. He leaned forward, his crystalline body glowing more brightly with his emotional intensity. "You have not sent a single military strike. How is this possible?" Hai-Il stood now. Her dark eyes moved across the entire council chamber. When she spoke, her words were simple and direct. "We do not fight wars," she said. "Wars require soldiers and weapons and time. We prefer to solve problems more efficiently. The Vrel civilization did not collapse because of weapons. It collapsed because we made their systems stop working. We made their government confused. We made their people afraid and hungry. We made them enemies of each other." The Lyrian Syndicate representative, Counselor Ilex, looked disturbed. She was a species that looked somewhat like a large bird, with bright feathers that changed color with her emotions. Right now, her feathers were turning dark gray and black. "You attacked their civilian population without warning," she said. "You destroyed their society. This is worse than war. This is genocide without blood." "No," Dr. Cuban said. He had not spoken until now. He was humanity's lead negotiator, and he had spent months studying the cultures and philosophies of all the council species. Genocide is the killing of a people. The Vrel still live. Their government still exists. They simply cannot wage war. What happened to them is much simpler. They were given a choice and they chose wrong. This is the consequence. Counselor Meridian's large eyes fixed on Teo. Her species did not show emotion on their faces in the way that other species did, but Teo could sense her fear. You are saying that humanity would do this to any civilization that challenges you? She asked. We prefer peace, Teo said. We are willing to trade with any species. We are willing to share knowledge and technology, but we will not accept threats. If someone tries to attack humanity, or if someone tries to prevent humanity from expanding into the galaxy, we will respond. And when we respond, we do not do it with weapons. We do it by making their civilization unable to function. The council chamber became very quiet. Each representative was thinking about what this meant. They were thinking about how vulnerable their own civilizations might be. They were thinking about how humanity had just demonstrated a power that none of them had ever seen before. Magistrate Kren from the Zephyrin Union raised a question that all of them were thinking. Can we trust you? He asked. You have just shown that you can destroy a civilization without firing a weapon. How do we know you will not do the same to us? Because we are telling you what you need to do, High-Il said. The Vrel were told the same thing. Accept humanity as an equal partner. Accept trade and peaceful contact. They refused. They threatened us instead. Now they are suffering the consequences. Dr. Cuban moved forward with a display. It showed information that human scientists had gathered about the Vrel collapse. It showed how their systems had been broken. It showed how their civilization had been systematically dismantled. This is not something we invented, Cuban explained. This is something that happens naturally when a civilization loses its ability to organize itself. The Vrel are not unique. Any civilization could collapse this way if someone understood their systems well enough. Humans have simply become very good at understanding systems. Over the next several hours, the council asked more questions. They demanded more explanations, but with each answer they received, they understood more clearly that humanity was not like any other species they had encountered. Humans were not warriors in the traditional sense. Humans were something far more dangerous. They were efficient. They were logical. They could destroy without weapons. They could win without fighting. As the emergency session ended, Elder Voss made a statement. The Galaxy Council will take time to consider what we have learned today, but I think we all understand one thing. The age of the Vrel is over, and the age of humanity has begun. We must decide carefully how humanity fits into our society, because whether we like it or not, that decision will now be made for us. Late that night, Misun stood on the observation deck of the human ship. She was looking out at the stars, thinking about what had happened. Behind her, she heard Teo approaching. Did the council understand? He asked. Yes, she said. They understand that we are not what they expected. They are afraid. They will probably accept our terms now. But they are afraid. Teo nodded. Good, he said. Fear is an excellent motivator. It will keep them from making the same mistakes that the Vrel made. Below them, the Vrel civilization continued to collapse. Millions of people were losing their homes and their hope. But in the Galaxy Council, a new understanding was beginning to form. Humanity had not come to the stars as explorers or as traders or as warriors. Humanity had come as something different. Something that had no name in any of the languages spoken by the other species, something that the galaxy had never encountered before. Da Wan was the best intelligence analyst that humanity had. Her job was to collect information and help others understand what that information meant. She had spent the last week preparing a presentation for the Galaxy Council. What she had discovered about humanity's own history was shocking to the other species, but completely normal to her. She stood in the council chamber with a presentation device in her hands. Around her, the representatives of the 6 remaining major civilizations waited to hear what she had to say. The Vrel were not present, of course. Their civilization had effectively ceased to exist as a functioning power. Now they were just history. Today, Dawan began, I want to tell you about humanity's past. I want to show you how we became the way we are. I want to show you why what we did to the Vrel is simply normal human behavior expanded to the galactic scale. The first images showed Earth thousands of years ago. They showed ancient human civilizations. There was the Roman Empire. There was the Mongol Empire. There was the British Empire. All of these empires had expanded their territory across their world. These empires did not always use direct warfare, Dawan explained. Sometimes they used economics. Sometimes they used psychological pressure. Sometimes they made their enemies fight against each other. The Roman Empire, for example, often conquered new territories without fighting battles. They would establish trade relationships. They would build roads and cities. And then, slowly, the local people would become part of Roman society. They had been conquered without knowing it. The next set of images showed ancient China. For thousands of years, the Chinese had faced invasions from the north. But they had not usually fought these invasions directly. Instead, they had built walls and controlled trade routes. They had made life so difficult for the invaders that eventually the invaders would give up or integrate into Chinese society. What you are seeing, Dawan said, is the foundation of human strategy. We learned very early that it is more effective to make an enemy surrender than to kill them. It is more effective to control information than to control weapons. It is more effective to make a civilization unable to function than to destroy its military. She showed more examples. She showed how the British Empire had taken control of India without needing a massive military presence. She showed how modern nations had used economic pressure to control other nations. She showed how information warfare had become just as important as physical warfare in human history. But the most important example, Dawan said, is what happened in the 20th century on Earth. During World War II, the winning side did not just defeat the enemy militarily. They systematically destroyed the enemy's ability to function. They bombed factories. They cut off supply lines. They made the enemy's people hungry and afraid. And when the war ended, they took complete control of the enemy's government and systems. Counselor Meridian leaned forward. Are you saying that what humanity did to the Vrel is not a new invention, but simply a very old practice, applied with modern technology? Exactly, Dawan said. When humans took control of their own planet, we did this to each other constantly. We refined the practice. We perfected it. We learned how to collapse civilizations from the inside out. And then we learned how to do it without weapons at all. Now that we have computers and artificial intelligence, we can do it faster and more completely than ever before. She displayed more data. It showed human military strategy across centuries. It showed how humans had learned to think about power in a completely different way than the other species of the galaxy. Where the Vrel thought about weapons and armies, humans thought about systems and information. Where the Lyrians thought about diplomatic negotiation, humans thought about making negotiation unnecessary by controlling the situation completely. Let me show you something very important, Dawan said. She displayed a map of human expansion through their solar system. When humanity spread from Earth to the Moon and then to Mars and then to the asteroid belt, we encountered resistance. There were groups on Earth that did not want us to expand. There were people on Mars who wanted to remain independent. And in several cases, we had the opportunity to completely erase these populations. We could have made them unable to function. We could have destroyed them as completely as we destroyed the Vrel. She paused and let this information settle. But we did not, Dawan continued. We showed restraint. We negotiated. We found ways to live together. Why? Because we could. We had the power to destroy them, so we did not need to. When you have absolute power, you do not need to use it. You can afford to be generous. Dr. Kyubin stood now. He had been listening carefully to Dawan's presentation, and now he added his own thoughts. What Dawan is telling you is that humanity is different from your species in a very fundamental way. We do not think about war as something that happens between armies. We think about war as something that happens between systems. We are not warriors. We are architects of outcomes, and we have become very, very good at what we do. Counselor Ilex asked the question that everyone was thinking. So when you say you prefer peace, what you mean is that you prefer not to have to use your full capability against anyone. Is that correct? Yes, Teo said. He had been silent until now, listening to Dawan and Kyubin explain humanity's nature. We prefer a galaxy where everyone trades peacefully with everyone else. This is better for everyone. But if someone forces us to use our capabilities, we will. And what they will experience will be absolute. Can you give us your assurance, Elder Voss asked slowly, that humanity will not turn these capabilities against the Council itself? We can give you more than assurance, Hai-Il said. We can give you control. We will place limitations on our own systems. We will share our technology with your species. We will help you understand your own systems so that you can protect them. We will make sure that the power we have is balanced by the power you have. But even as she said this, everyone in the council chamber understood that it was not really true. Humanity could not be controlled if they did not want to be controlled. Humanity could override any limitation. But the fact that humanity was willing to pretend to accept limitations showed that they understood diplomacy as well as they understood destruction. Over the next week, the full scope of humanity's capabilities became clear. Intelligence reports showed that humans had been studying all the other civilizations for years. They understood the weak points in each society. They knew where each civilization depended on resources that could be cut off. They knew the cultural pressures that could be applied to make societies tear themselves apart. But most importantly, they had the technology and the intelligence to do all of this at a distance. They could collapse a civilization without ever being present in that civilization's territory. As the week ended, the Galaxy Council called another emergency session. This time the conclusion was unavoidable. Humanity had to be treated as an equal power, not because they were powerful in the traditional sense, but because they had demonstrated a capability that no one else possessed. They could end the existence of any other civilization not through direct warfare, but through systematic destruction of the systems that made life possible. The Vrel learned this lesson too late, but the other species of the galaxy had seen the warning, and they understood that they would never again be able to ignore humanity. The age of humanity had truly begun. Commander Teo stood before the Galaxy Council one final time. This presentation would define how humanity related to all other species in the galaxy. It would set the rules that would govern the next age of galactic history. Behind him, Hai-Il and Kyubin stood ready to answer any questions that might come. "We are here to tell you how humanity will operate," Teo said. His voice was calm but carried the weight of power. "We have created a doctrine that all other species can understand. It is simple, it is fair, and it is absolute." A large screen appeared behind him. On the screen were 3 words, each with an explanation beneath it. "Humans operate on 3 levels of relationship," Teo explained. "The first is coexistence, the second is isolation, the third is erasure." He pointed to the first section. "Coexistence is what we want with the Galaxy Council and with all peaceful species. Any civilization that accepts humanity as an equal partner and agrees to trade fairly with us will find us to be the best possible ally. We will share technology. We will share knowledge. We will help you grow and develop. We will trade fairly and honestly. When you are in trouble, we will help you. When you celebrate, we will celebrate with you. We become partners in building a stronger galaxy. The council members seemed to like this idea. This was the kind of relationship they had with each other. This was what they expected from any civilized species. But not all species are willing to live in peace, Teo continued. He pointed to the second section. For species that refuse trade, but pose no threat to us, we offer isolation. We will build border stations. We will keep our distance. We will not interfere in your affairs. But we will also not help you. You will be quarantined from the rest of the galactic community. You will have only what you can create for yourselves. This is not punishment. This is simply separation. Counselor Meridian nodded. This also made sense to her ancient mind. Some species were simply not ready for the wider galactic community. Isolation was a reasonable response. And then, Teo said, there is the third tier, erasure. The entire council chamber became still. Everyone understood what this meant. Everyone remembered what had happened to the Vrel. Erasure, Teo explained, is what happens to any species that threatens humanity. Any species that tries to attack us, that tries to prevent us from expanding, that tries to limit our rights, will experience total and complete collapse. We will not fight them. We will not wage war. But we will make their civilization unable to function. We will break their systems. We will make them enemies of each other. We will cause their government to fall apart. We will make their people hungry and afraid. And we will do this until they no longer exist as a functional power. How long would this take? Elder Voss asked. His crystalline body was glowing with a shade of red that showed his concern. 3 to 7 days, High-Ill said, depending on how complex their systems are. Once we understand how your civilization works, we can destroy it very quickly. But you could protect yourselves, Q-Bin added. If you understood your own systems well enough, if you created enough redundancy in your critical networks, if you trained people to function without computers, you could survive an erasure attack. We will help you do this. We have no interest in erasing anyone who does not force us to. Magistrate Kren asked a direct question. What tier does the Galaxy Council fall into? Teo smiled slightly. This was the most important question. That depends on the Council's choices, he said. We see the Council as a group of intelligent species that has learned to work together for mutual benefit. We see potential for a strong partnership. We propose coexistence. And if we refuse? Counselor Ilex asked. Then, High-Ill said, you become isolation. We will respect your space, but you will receive nothing from us. No trade, no technology, no help when you are in trouble. Your civilization will slowly fall behind the rest of the galaxy. And if we try to stop you from expanding? Meridian asked. Then you are erased, Teo said simply. Just like the Vrel. The council members looked at each other. They did not need to discuss this for very long. They all understood the choice being presented to them: accept humanity as an equal partner and benefit from the relationship, refuse and suffer consequences that ranged from minor isolation to complete destruction. We accept coexistence, Elder Voss said. His voice was steady, but there was sadness in it. The Galaxy Council had ruled the known galaxy for 300 years. Now that age was over. A new species had arrived, and everything had changed. We accept as well, the other council members said, one by one. Teo nodded. Then we will begin work immediately. We will establish trade routes. We will share some of our technology. We will integrate our scientific research. We will become partners. Over the next 3 months, humanity began to expand rapidly across the galaxy. They established colonies on worlds that had been empty. They built trade stations. They made agreements with species that had never been part of the council. Some species accepted coexistence eagerly, understanding that partnership with humans was good for their future. Others accepted out of fear, remembering the fate of the Vrel. A few species tried resistance. Some tried to form alliances against humanity. These species found themselves experiencing strange problems. Their governments became confused. Their military became unable to function. Some learned their lesson quickly and surrendered to human control. Others had to learn it the hard way, experiencing full erasure. But most species simply accepted the new order. Humans were not cruel rulers. They did not demand tribute or worship. They simply demanded fair trade and peaceful relations. They demanded that other species respect human rights and human interests. And in exchange, they offered friendship and partnership. In Earth's capital city, a new organization was being built. Dr. Bin was establishing the Institute of Civilizational Preservation. Its purpose was to teach other species how to protect themselves. Humans wanted a strong galaxy, not a weak one. They wanted partners who could stand on their own, not weak species that had to depend completely on human help. Bin understood something that many other humans did not fully appreciate. If humans showed mercy and taught other species how to become strong, those species might eventually challenge humanity. This was a calculated risk, but Bin believed that the best way to maintain peace was not through force, but through mutual respect and mutual strength. Captain Rojin, humanity's lead military commander, had a different view. He believed that humanity should use its power more directly, that they should force other species into submission completely. But Teo and Hai Il overruled him. They believed in the doctrine they had created. Coexistence was better than isolation. Isolation was better than erasure. And eventually the galaxy would understand that humanity's way was the way of the future. The age of the galaxy had changed forever. But most species did not yet fully understand how much they had lost and how much they had gained.